In this episode of the podcast, I'm sitting down with PhotoJoseph. We're going to be talking about mobile content creation and the state of the industry.
This is TWiP.
Hey folks, welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today I have one of my best and oldest friends. Oldest as in I've known him for a long time, not that he's an old man. Although he is kind of an old... No.
Getting there.
PhotoJoseph.
But you know what, Frederick? I'll always be younger than you.
Yes, you will. In some ways, my friend, in some ways. So, you know, you could have two cars and one may have more mileage. I'm just saying that.
Wear my mileage with honor.
There you go. Welcome to the show, man. It's always good to have you on. How you doing?
Thank you. It's good to be back. It's been a long time since I've been on your show, so this is kind of fun.
It feels
exciting
no, it
announcements
hasn't.
to come back on here. This is good.
It has not been. No.
PGH1 launch. Wasn't that the last time I was on here?
No. We did. I feel like we. Well, maybe that was it. Speaking of old. It was back in the Truman era. No.
Back in 2001. Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, all is well. Keeping busy, having fun.
That's good. I'm doing
building
good.
Companies, building empires.
building companies and selling them and having a good time. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that over beers. Thank you. We'll talk about that over beers when I come up in Rager Studio.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for 12 years now. So let's see if we make it up there.
Hey, it's gonna happen. I promise, it's gonna happen. This interview, as we discussed, I wanted to focus it on mobile, right? And there's a lot of aspects of mobile. There's the acquisition or the content acquisition side of it, and then there's the post-production side of it, right? So I want to touch on both of those in this hour. Let's start with the acquisition side. You play with a lot of tools. A lot of these manufacturers will just send you stuff to look at and test and play with and do all the things with. I buy my stuff. Thank you very much. So I've purchased over the last year an Insta360, the X2. I want to get the X3. So the Insta360, the DJI Pocket, both 1 and 2. Just upgraded my iPhone, so I have that, right? So I feel like I can do a lot of stuff in mobile right now. So here's the devil's advocate question. With all that stuff and all that capability, why would I still want to go to one of these cameras? Like, why would I want to lug something around that only does one thing, f-stops, shutter speeds, it's heavy, can't even talk to the internet? Like, why would I do that versus going straight mobile?
Can't even talk to the internet. What is this? 2010, 2002,
savages?
1984? I'm with you on that. It is a little bit odd how many modern cameras don't have any connection to the internet, don't have GPS built in, don't have any AI kind of imaging in them. And then you pick up your iPhone and it's got all of that. And it's incredible. No, There's no doubt. There's no doubt. The more traditional gear, I do say real cameras. I don't like to say that because it's kind of a stupid thing to say because obviously, your iPhone is a real camera, but if I say that on this show, I don't mean it to be derogatory towards smaller cameras. I'm just used to working with bigger cameras. That's more my world.
Yeah. So
what do you want to know? Why you would use a big camera these days?
Yeah, no, just the devil's advocate is why. I mean, we know why, right? It's optical, right? I mean, if you want that image quality, that low light performance, all the things, then you need it's physics. You can't break physics, right?
Sure.
At least we don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why you would go to the bigger one. But the other side of the larger cameras, and tell me if you agree with this. The other side of shooting with a larger camera professionally, some of it's theater. Right? Because you're not, even though you could do a kick-ass job at a wedding or whatever with your phone probably, and maybe do it better than you could, depending on your skill level, than you could with a mirrorless camera. If you show up with last year's iPhone at a wedding, or even this year's iPhone at a wedding that you're charging $6,000 for, whatever, they're going to laugh you out of the room. So there's the theater part of it, right? So I don't know. Where are we? Is it ready? Is this stuff ready?
Yeah. Well, okay. So to the theater part of it, I mean, yes, there is a degree of truth to that, of course, but also what you can capture, as you know, and we all know, but what you can capture with the better quality lens, the better optics, the bigger sensor, and so on, it does make a quality difference. It's not like they're basically the same. I mean, if you're talking about full daylight, long, deep depth of field, and you're not looking for any kind of shallow depth of field, and there's not a whole lot of crazy motion going on, so you're not worried about bit rate, you're not worrying about bokeh, you're not worrying about noise in the shadows, then sure, you could put an iPhone camera next to any Canon, Sony, Lumix, whatever, and go, yeah, I mean, they look pretty much the same. It's when you start getting a little bit deeper into the pixels, or of course, when you start getting into the lower light, wanting that shallow depth of field, having a lot of movement on scene, you need that high bit rate. That's when those little cameras start to break down. And so, showing up to do a wedding, if it's an outdoor wedding and you don't want any shallow depth of field, then sure. Or people are willing to put up with the what's the portrait mode, where it works well on me. I got no hair. The portrait mode looks great on me. You add a little hair and it's getting better, but it's not the real thing.
You're automatically masked, Joseph. You have a perfect mask on you all the time. I don't know. I mean, but I would say consider the audience, right? So people always use the analogy of, oh, you can't shoot a billboard, or like you just said, weddings. If you want to get shallow depth of field and all that, then you got to get a proper camera. But what I would go back to saying is, if you consider the audience, most of the photographs that we take are not going into a wedding album or going on a billboard. Most of them are going into a social media stream of some sort, maybe into a YouTube video or something like that. So smaller screens, for the most part, is the ultimate destination for most of these things. So looking through that lens, why not use a smaller camera and then do all your post-production on the device that will be viewing the content ultimately? I don't know. It just seems like it makes sense. What do you think? Is that flawed thinking?
Well, I don't know if flawed, but I mean, you're right that most people do consume it on that little screen. That is the way most people are going to see it. But and specifically about the wedding, and I'm not a wedding photographer, but I have been married, I go through the experience. You do want that wedding book. You might want a few prints that you're going to hang on the wall, send to the grandparents, whatever. There's more to it than just looking at it on your screen. And if you're going to spend $10,000 on a wedding photographer, you probably want something more than a couple of JPEGs to look at on your iPhone. You probably want that nice album, that nice print on the wall. And that's where things, not to say you can't print a beautiful print from an iPhone camera, but it is not the same as a print that's coming off of a full-size camera with a much larger sensor.
But how many people are printing? Like, I would say, if Mark Zuckerberg has his way, nobody's going to be printing. You're going to be hanging out in the metaverse, looking at your digital NFTs on the wall and doing all the things. Everything's going to be digital from concept to final delivery, and nothing's going to be real for the most part. If you fast forward,
it's not all about print, though.
Yeah.
It's not all about printing, and it's not all about resolution. Even when it does come to printing, it's not all about resolution. It is still, as you well know, and I know you're playing devil's advocate, but as you well know, there's dynamic range. There's recovering those highlights. You want to shoot a wedding dress in the sun. You want to shoot a couple in your traditional black tux and white wedding dress, and they're in the full sun. Good luck getting that with detail in the highlights and shadows on a tiny sensor. It's just, you need a little bit more.
That's today, though.
Someone's shooting, right? I'm sure someone's out there shooting stuff on an iPhone. There's got to be somebody out there doing it, and they're probably charging a minimal price because of, like you said in the beginning, kind of this expectation. But I just don't imagine too many people being willing to hire a professional photographer who's just shooting it on their iPhone. It just seems a little bit of a stretch.
I wonder. I agree. And as we record this, it's November of 2022, right? So, but what about in 2025? Right? Or 2030, are we going to see the expectation of the larger camera being better somehow than the smaller thing that doesn't even look like a camera anymore? Is that going to be gone? Is that we're going to see attrition weed that out of the mindset of people that are buying photography, right? At some point, I think the holy grail is, hey, you don't need to know how I'm making this sausage. You don't need to know what's happening in the kitchen. You don't need to know what knives in the stove that I'm using. thing. As long as you enjoy this meal I prepared for you and you love it, that's all you should care about, right? Are we ever going to get to that point where PhotoJoseph could show up at an event and, oh my God, it's PhotoJoseph is here. And he only brought a phone. This is amazing. I'm going to shoot everything with a phone from now on, right? So can we see that happening?
Of course, it's possible, right? And the tech is getting better and better. I mentioned in the beginning, why don't the big cameras have the AI that the little cameras do? The things that you can get off of a tiny sensor and tiny lens of an iPhone is remarkable, and it's all because of the computing power, right? The computational photography that's going into it has nothing to do with the optics and the sensor size. I mean, tiny bit, but it's all the computational. Whereas on a bigger camera, it's the lens, it's the sensor size that's going into that. Obviously, a lot more, but there is none of that computational photography. If manufacturers take that idea and put that into a big camera, well, now you're comparing the same kind of tech, but now again with a bigger optic, bigger sensor. I mean, God, at that point, what's possible, it gets really crazy. And of course, when you're bringing those raw photos or raw video into the computer and you're doing the things that you can do in there that you just can't do with a JPEG, you can't do with an HEIC photo, then you really start to push things. But we'll see. We'll see. And it's always they're getting better, but it's not there. And what we can do on full-size cameras is also getting better and better. And it's pretty remarkable. The dynamic range that you're getting out of modern sensors, the autofocus capability, the stabilization that's built in, all that stuff adds up to a hell of a package.
All right, Joseph. So, of course, we have all these tools to create the content, and presumably at some point in the future, I even heard MKBHD talk about this. He was talking about what is it with these camera manufacturers that aren't building smartphone type technologies into the cameras, or what's to stop Apple from acquiring one of these camera companies and just decimating the whole space. But that's all, that could happen in the future. Today, once you capture your footage, you can take it somewhere, right? So you can edit it in DaVinci or in LumaFusion. You can edit it in is it DaVinci Resolve, right? So DaVinci Resolve is coming out with the mobile version of that app.
For mobile, that's right.
Yeah, for mobile, and a couple of other options that are out there. So the space is clearly getting better and better as processors get better and better. These tools are coming because of the M1 and M2 processors. Before those showed up, we wouldn't have had these mobile desktop class applications. Putting that in perspective from someone like you that does this stuff professionally, professional content creator, YouTuber, etc., is it enticing for you to think one day that you're going to go out and shoot an entire episode on your phone and then take that onto your iPad and edit it and publish it back up to YouTube directly from your iPad? No computer, no mirrorless involved, just all little tools that can fit in your satchel. What do you think? Are we there yet? Are we going in that direction? What do you think?
Yeah, no, we're there for sure. And just to back up, to clarify, you said that you were talking about the M1 and the M2 made these things possible, but actually LumaFusion by LumaTouch has been around for years, and that was on much older iPads. I mean, I was doing demos on that software probably, 6 years ago, maybe more, with 4K footage, editing 4K footage on an iPad long before the M was even a glint in anybody's eye. So,
but not with multicam though. Not with multicam.
Not with multicam. But so that's been around for a while. It's remarkable what the power that's in that app, and of course, it's continued to evolve. Now, to your specific question, I've done that. I mean, I have shot stuff entirely on iOS and then brought it into an iPad, edited in LumaFusion, and delivered to YouTube. I've done it before. It's just that it's not the same caliber as what I would have done shooting on the proper cameras. Now, shooting versus editing, two obviously different things. I can shoot on iPhone and edit in DaVinci Resolve, or I can shoot on a mirrorless camera and edit in LumaFusion. Two totally separate parts of the puzzle there. For me, traveling, being able to edit on an iPad is awesome. Absolutely. However, that said, for my particular workflow, I want to finish on the desktop because I have things that I do in regards to color grading, in regards to sound, audio finishing, effects, titles, things like that either you can't do on mobile, or it would be kind of ridiculously difficult to do on mobile. And I would rather just sit down in front of a computer that's got a much bigger screen, dual monitors, a reference monitor, the big audio monitors and all that, and just do the work there to do that final level. But I love doing at least a rough cut on mobile. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm curious where all this is going, because if you look at the tea leaves, clearly it's moving in that direction. It feels like you remember what was it, like 10, 15, maybe 20ish years ago when. No, it was like 10, 15 years ago when iPhone started decimating the point and shoot space.
Sure.
Remember? You started seeing those numbers like, where's the point and shoot market? Where's all these little happy snap cameras that we used to carry around? Gone. And they got eaten by Apple and, Android, right? So those things are gone. And I'm wondering, I wonder if we're on the precipice of something like that again when it comes to just a reinvention of what it means to be maybe not operating at your level, because you're doing broadcast quality stuff that you could easily do a hit to CNN and it'd be perfectly normal, right? But for the folks that don't need to do that, right? You're doing TikTok, YouTube shorts, you're doing, blogging or short films just for fun, those sorts of things. They don't need all that stuff. And there's millions of those people, billions maybe, right? So do those people, and they're going to learn on this mobile stuff, right? So it's not like, oh, I can't do anything until I get to a proper edit bay where I can actually start editing. Those days are gone, right? You can create. Remember Blair Witch Project? You remember that that movie? You could do that on your phone, right? So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we were born too early.
Bringing TikTok in, it's a great comparison, because TikTok is not about producing the highest quality content possible. We're talking camera quality, lighting, microphones, all that. It's not about that. It's about creating content originally on your phone and keeping it simple and a bit lower quality, a bit lowbrow. What makes TikTok content so good is literally the content. What are people doing, saying, singing, dancing, all that stuff. That is what makes TikTok so amazing. And the fact that if you actually try and produce something on a really good quality camera and put it on TikTok, it's probably going to get fewer views because people see that and they assume, oh, this is an ad. They're selling me something. Yep. This is a brand. This is not an organic thing that, the guy down the street did that's super funny or super clever or whatever. So that is very different. And if you're learning to edit on TikTok, that's in the app or on some other mobile app, and you've shot everything on your phone. I mean, that's amazing, right? It's a great skill. Obviously, you're creating fantastic content, well, assuming that you are creating fantastic content people actually want to watch. But it is about what you're doing. It's not about the actual edit and the camera that you shot it on. Eventually, you might want to move those skills into something bigger. You might want to start working on, music videos or wedding cinematography or things for broadcast. Who knows, right? You might want to be working on something bigger. Those skills can translate over, but you're going to have to upskill your gear and your editing software most likely to get beyond those basic functions.
Yeah, I just wonder. I wonder if we're looking at the future through 2022 colored glasses, right? Sure. So, and what if that future, and I mean, we can see the writing on the wall now with the mistrust of, mainstream media and news outlets and brands, all these different celebrities, these different sources with a lot of money are trusted less and less going forward. And sure. We're seeing the rise of TikTok and YouTube shorts and the cinema verite style rough, video as being more trustworthy because it takes a lot of effort to fake something that looks crappy, right?
Right.
Right. It's like built-in safety, right? That would have been too much money to do that in After Effects. It's got to be real, right? So is that the future though? I wonder, in other words, like to piggyback on what you're saying. This fictitious person that's like, okay, I'm going to start here using these tools and put TikTok stuff up there. And then one day I'm going to ascend to being able to do proper editing for broadcast and 8K and all the things. Right. What if that end goal over time becomes more and more it's TikTok or it's whatever comes next after TikTok?
Yeah, a couple things there. So I wouldn't. You use the word ascend, and I wouldn't use that. I would say it's a transfer. It's a transformation. It's something different. It's not that it's better. It's something different. And one of the key things you'll notice that when you talked about this, you mentioned TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and you didn't say it, but Instagram Stories, same basic idea. This is all short form content, right? And it's wonderful to sit and watch a 30-second, 60-second, whatever TikTok video that is very kind of. It's all about the story. It's fast-paced. It's fun. It's not great lighting. It's not great sound, whatever, but it's all forgivable because it is what it is, right? Yeah. But that is a short-form thing. Are you going to watch a 30-minute long sitcom shot that way and edited that way? You're going to sit through an hour-long documentary, a 2-hour-long feature film? No, there's a point where you're going, okay, this is too much. I just, please calm down, slow down, give me some decent edits and decent lighting and decent sound. And that's what's beyond the TikTok. And not saying there's anything wrong with TikTok. I love TikTok. I think it's a brilliant platform, but it is not a long form platform, or at least a long form format, I should say. I think to do that, you do need to kind of up the quality a bit.
Yeah. The short form stuff is really interesting because I remember I was in the military, as you know, and I remember thinking when I was going through basic training and some other exercises and things that we had to do that I remember thinking I can put up with almost anything for a short amount of time. Right. It's when it's extended and there's no end in sight is the worst. But if you know the date, I just got to survive until this date, I'm good. But if it's just a short amount of time and it's uncomfortable or whatever, you can put up with that. So you overlay that thinking onto this TikTok stuff, you'll forgive bad audio, cheesy jokes or whatever, because you're like, oh, this is going to be over in 10 seconds anyway. I'm just going to go on. I'm going to go on to the next one versus a long form YouTube video like this one, where you have to really be engaged in the content in order for you to hang in there all the way through, right? Before people, you look at my YouTube stats, people drop off right before they get to the very end, unless it's something really riveting like this interview, right? Right? They'll drop off over time. But in those short ones, I don't do YouTube shorts or Instagram stories or anything like that yet, but I can imagine the metrics of those is going to be completely different than long form content. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, well, like you, I really don't do much in there. I put a couple of shorts up, and I don't know. It's a whole. I can't do the just grab my iPhone. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Like that is just so not me, right? It's not me. So leave that to the folks to whom that is. When I upload anything short form, it is a trailer for a longer form thing. That's the short form stuff that I upload. And it might be vertical even. I'll make like a 15-second trailer out of something. I actually just uploaded one today for a recent video that is a 15-second vertical format trailer cut out of the full length 16:9 original. And that's fine. That's good for me. It's something I can put up on Twitter or wherever, and people can watch that and get a taste of what the video is and then click through to watch the whole thing. But shooting that kind of traditional TikTok thing it's not me. It's just not me. And I'm not going to force myself to do something that I'm not. I have plenty of other stuff to do. So
Right. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. And these tools keep coming on fast and furious. Like we said, DaVinci Resolve is coming out with a mobile version. LumaTouch, makers of LumaFusion, have been threatening to come out with the multicam version for a while now. So hopefully that's imminent. There's just all, we've got, that's just on the video side. On the photo side, the apps are equally amazing, right? So I look at those, and I'm like, if I had this when I was a photojournalist in the Air Force, if I had this tool, I would have been, my backpack would have been way much lighter. Everything would have been different, right? No satellite uplinks, none of that crazy stuff. I don't know. So put on your Nostradamus hat, right? You kind of look like him a little bit right now, but you put on your Nostradamus hat. Looking forward, we're 2022 right now. Let's say 7 years from now. Where would you like things to be in this mobile world, software side and hardware side? Sure.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So all cameras getting some sort of AI, computational photography. I think that's. I would like to say it's inevitable, but I know we've talked about this for literally decades and it hasn't happened yet. So it's a little bit odd. But let's just say that is probably the least likely but most desired thing to see. So that's first. Internet connectivity for cloud-based editing for everything, so that everything can go to the cloud. And I know that obviously with bigger files, if you're shooting ProRes or RAW or something like that, we're talking video here, then clearly that's a huge amount of bandwidth. But 5G is here now, and then whatever the heck is next is going to be coming next, and it's just going to get faster and faster. We're already seeing camera to cloud systems that you can shoot in the field, put a separate hardware device onto your camera. Atomos is now involved with this and actually literally push a version of your video to the cloud so an remote editor can start on it right away. So that sort of thing getting adopted all the way down to the point where it's built into the cameras fantastic. Like we have it now essentially built into the iPhone, but talking about building it into bigger cameras, fantastic. And then cloud-based editing, but I think a lot of that is going to start being AI. It's just going to be automated. You put it up there, basically make a rough story together. This is part one, this is part two, and then let the software figure it out. And I'm sure you'll go in and finish it up later. But I see that coming where you've got, I don't want to say very little editing to do, but less editing to do than you do now. Just let it be automated. Let the AI come up with a basic format for it. And I think that's going to be happening sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and we're kind of seeing some of that now with Insta360 and like DJI with the Pocket. They have those different modes where, just shoot this kind of shot, shoot that kind of shot, shoot this, put that, and then we'll put it together with all the music and transitions and all that stuff. So you're saying,
and that's more template based, but I can see it being where you're telling a story. I'm doing a product review. I'm going to review the new AirPods, and I'm going to do an unboxing, and I'm going to talk about the quality and do all this stuff. And I'm shooting with a couple different cameras, and it all just goes to a cloud automatically. And then an AI goes, boom, here's your rough cut. Where do you want to go from here? Yeah. And why not? And I could even see where you're saying this part of the story, I want to actually move that over here later, but I recorded it here, so there's not a good transition. Maybe the AI can figure that out. It knows what makes a good transition from scene to scene. It's analyzed tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of episodes of sitcoms and dramas and horror and all this stuff, and it knows, okay, we need to kind of flow this direction. We're going to find the words and even rebuild the words. You know what? You never said, next we're going to talk about how the AirPods sound. But you said all those words, and it can rearrange them and go, well, here it is. We're going to put a B-roll shot up of the AirPod, and we're going to roll that sentence over it that we just rebuilt, and boom, off you go. Totally possible. Completely foreseeable. No. Yeah,
I could see, in that future, you're using that app of the future. Just call it roughcut.ai or whatever, right? So you're using.
Hold on, I'm going to register that right now.
Go get it. But you're using that app, and you could give it a bunch of footage. You can say, yes, please edit this in the style of Alfred Hitchcock, or Steven Spielberg, or Quentin Tarantino, or whatever, and have it apply that style color grade and editing sensibilities, rough jump cuts, or Guy Ritchie, right? Do that kind of thing, right? You could do all that in the future.
Sure. So we still got to shoot it and light it, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah, especially if you started out like that. If you started out with, I'm going to shoot an Alfred Hitchcockian type short, and you lit it like Alfred Hitchcock, and you got all the base materials, and then you give it to the AI to finish for you, right? So I don't know.
I can see that happening. Yeah, but let's talk a little bit about what's happening now. And
with the cloud.
You mentioned with the cloud, and you mentioned DaVinci Resolve coming to the iPad, which we all learned in the last keynote a month or so ago, and that's all we know. That's all anybody knows. A press release went out that day and just basically said, you saw DaVinci Resolve on the iPad. It's coming before the end of the year. That's basically it. Mm-hmm. But how that ties into the Blackmagic cloud system, which is here today, and that's something
which you've used,
which I'm using. Yes.
You're using it. You're not just testing it. You're using it as a user, right? Which is different than, So what do you think? Is it here?
It's amazing. Yeah, I signed up on day one when Grant announced it, and it was still in beta. I actually signed up for the Resolve Cloud, the Blackmagic Cloud, and installed Resolve 18, which was an early beta version, and finished and delivered a client project before NAB. And at NAB, I was talking to my friends at Blackmagic, and they're going, "You delivered? You're the first person that we've heard to do that." So I may have been the first person to deliver a project to a client on the new system. And it was, it was rough in the beginning. It was in beta. It had bugs. It had issues. And I've actually been working quite closely with Blackmagic over the last several months. I've got the cloud store, the Blackmagic Cloud Store installed in the studio. And it's fantastic. It's not flawless. There are still a couple of, not even bugs. It's more about just, some things that it could do a little better. But we're working on all these things, and it is phenomenal.
For those that don't know what it is, explain the basic premise or the value proposition for this.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a two-part system. So the DaVinci Resolve 18 allows access to Blackmagic Cloud. And for Resolve's portion of it, it is storing the database, which is where all of your projects are stored, your timelines and everything else. It stores them in the cloud. So you've got, if you're used to Final Cut, you have a Final Cut library, Premiere, I don't know what they call it, but whatever, same idea. You've got your core thing that stores everything. And then inside of that, within Resolve, and that is your database in Resolve. Inside of that, you have projects. And a project you would typically make for every project, like the name and implies. For me, I'm doing it for every YouTube video that I do. That's a new project. Boom, boom, boom. Mm-hmm. And that is stored in the cloud. Okay, so what's the point of storing it in the cloud? Well, the point is collaboration. So I actually work with a couple of remote editors, and they're scattered around the world, and they all have access to the exact same project. And depending on whether you turn on multi-user or not, we can actually be in the same project at the same time. I can see a little icon of where my assistant editor is currently editing. I can open up the same timeline. Because they're editing it, I can't edit it, but I can see that they're working on it, and there's a little refresh button every time they make a change. So I can hit that button and I can see exactly what they did. It's not like full on real time. I see them dragging things around.
It's not like Google Docs. It's not like Google Docs.
It's not quite that Google Docs. Yeah. But I can literally, every time they make a change, I get a little refresh. I can click that and I can see what they've done in there. So that is the resolve portion of that. Of course, anybody who's edited before goes, okay, well, what about the media? Well, you got to have the media to be able to do this. We can't be editing all this, crazy ProRes, whatever, raw media over the cloud. So the way that works, and this is where the hardware comes in, and you don't have to do it this way. This makes it easier if you do it this way. But where the Blackmagic hardware comes in is it's called the cloud store. Sorry, name escaping me for a moment there. The cloud store. There's 3 versions of it. There's the really big one. Then there's the middle-sized one. It's called the Cloud Store Mini. That's the one that I have, and that's an 8 terabyte service. And then there's a tiny one that actually you plug in your own drive to, but it is a much slower version of it. So it's kind of hard. I'm honestly not quite sure exactly where that fits into most workflows. But the Cloud Store Mini is the one that I have. It is it's a NAS, network attached storage, that just sits in my rack. Although it's just a tiny little box. I've just got it sitting in the rack. And I'm editing from that over 10 gig Ethernet. So I've got a 10 gig Ethernet system set up, and I can stream, I do regularly ProRes, 4K ProRes, multi-stream, 6 streams all the time. That's kind of my normal workflow, 5-6 streams of ProRes, and that's streaming over the 10 gig connection, no problem at all. It's probably using maybe 2/3 of the bandwidth, if even that. So that's just the NAS part of it. But where the cloud part of it comes in is there is a system in Resolve where it will automatically or manually, up to you, generate proxies. And those proxies can automatically sync to Dropbox or to Google Drive. And once those proxies are there, your remote editor now points at that folder of proxies that's synced on their Dropbox, and they go, there's all the files. And Resolve says, oop, it's just the proxies. Okay, connects to that, and it shows you the proxies, and they are now editing on whatever proxy format you've decided to upload. So for me, I'm doing everything ProRes 4K to start. So I do all my proxies in half resolution, so 1080p, and well, it's actually quarter resolution, but half size, you know what I mean, in HEVC. So it's very efficient. My assistant editor's on an M1 Mac, and so it handles the HEVC beautifully, and they edit smooth as butter on 1080p footage that's high bit rate. It looks fantastic. And then when I open it, I'm looking at the full original 4K footage. And that back and forth is glorious. And the way it's set up is super simple and straightforward. I go project by project. I can say sync this project or make proxies of this project and sync it to this folder on Dropbox. And then when we're done, I just go into the software and I say, throw away the proxies. We're done with them. Desync this from Dropbox, and it erases everything from Dropbox, and move on to the next project. And it's
okay.
amazing.
I have questions. Okay. So I get it fundamentally. I'm having trouble understanding what that NAS box is for. Why wouldn't I just take all the files, or generate? Why can't I just generate those proxies and put them on Dropbox or Google Drive and have my editor in Lithuania or whatever connect to that Dropbox and keep going that way? Why do you need a piece of hardware to make it happen?
Sure, you absolutely can. What the hardware offers you is a level of automation. So in addition to the NAS storage, but let's say you don't care about the NAS storage, you're just going to keep everything locally, you got a RAID, whatever, and you want to do the same thing. You absolutely can still do that, but you're not going to have the automation of automatically syncing proxies and automatically syncing non-proxiable content. So that would be your audio files. There's no proxies for audio. So the original audio files need to get synced. Your graphics, your PNGs, stuff like that needs to get synced as well. And so it can't just say, oh, dump all the proxy footage up, because that's not enough. That's not everything. You need everything. And what the cloud store does is it is smart enough to know what is proxiable, and it makes proxies of that, what is not, and then sync the original of that up there. So they do actually have everything that they need. You can still do that without the cloud store, but you have to do it by hand. So you'd have to manually copy these things into a Dropbox folder. It's a two-way sync as well. So if my assistant editor goes, oh, I found this cool sound effect to use, and they drop it on, they're going to put it into that folder in Dropbox, it's going to sync back to my NAS, and it's automatically there ready for me when I open it.
How long does this take? Like, say for I don't know, an hour. Like if I'm editing this project right here that we're recording right now, it's gonna be roughly an hour-ish or so all in. Give me that workflow. How long would it take to get the footage up there? You know, get it on Dropbox, get the proxies generated, and then have whoever's editing it.
This is just one stream of video, right? So and it's 1080p.
But say it was multiple. Say it was multiple. Say we're shooting 4K and there's three shots. There's our 2 shot. There's the 1 shot. There's this 1 shot.
Sure.
Right. If we're doing that, how's that going to work?
It's all 4K and you capture all ProRes. I mean, obviously it depends on your machine and how fast it is, but it might take 20 minutes to convert everything over to. Oh shoot, my wife. Hold on. Sorry. Give me a second. Sorry, we're gonna have to cut that.
I'll pause you. All right, you're live.
So let me take it from the perspective of what I do in my projects, right? So I'll shoot 3, 4, 5, 6 multicam angles, sometimes a screen recording that is rendered out as ProRes and so on. Typically for me, I don't do the proxy until I've got everything organized and I'm starting to work on it myself and I go, okay, I'm ready to go. So I might have, 20 gigs, 30 gigs, 50 gigs worth of footage, and I'll just hit make proxy. It might take 20 minutes. It might take a couple of hours. It depends on how much stuff is there. It's happening on a Mac Pro, so it's pretty quick. But obviously, it just depends on how much you have. And then as far as syncing time, well, that just depends on your upload. It's just those 1080p 5K HEVC files are quite small, so those are going to upload pretty quick if you have a decent Dropbox connection. I've synced quite large projects in the space of 20 to 30 minutes through Dropbox. And of course, if you just kind of let it go, just leave it on, and as you drop stuff in, it automatically renders the proxy immediately, which is what I do once I've got all the basic structure and I just leave it running. Then every change happens within moments, and then it's up there and ready for the editor. It's impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So theoretically, I could take this MacBook Pro M1 that I'm on right now. I could take this to Starbucks after all that magic has happened. Could I take this computer away from the NAS, the Blackmagic NAS, and sit down
100%.
and continue editing and have everyone else see the changes that are happening, and I'm just connected to Starbucks Wi-Fi or tethered or something?
That's exactly what I do. I'll take my laptop home and I'll do some editing on the laptop using the proxy footage. Same thing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a big deal. And then I wonder how all this is going to work into the mobile side too, right? So if they come out
that's where the iPad version is going to make that really interesting.
Right, because you're lightweight files, you have limited storage on these devices, so that makes sense. And now I can sit in front of the TV with my Apple Pencil and drag clips around and do all the things. Let's wrap this up, man. There's so much to talk about with mobile. We have to continue this. We can't let it be another 15, 20 years before we have one of these touch-ins. If people want to contact you or get in touch with PhotoJoseph, where's your roam? I talk to photographers. Some say, just hit me on Instagram. Some have a blog. Some have whatever. What's the Joseph area?
Sure. Well, the way to see my content, of course, is YouTube. That's the everything for content. So youtube.com/PhotoJoseph. And the best way to just reach out to me is on Twitter. That is my biggest platform for sure. Even though Elon is taking over now, I love Twitter.
Isn't that sad it's sad that you have to apologize now, right? It's
I know. It's a little weird. It is fun watching the madness unfurl. It is fantastically interesting.
You just like watching it because you're not in it. You know what those Twitter employees are going through now.
Oh my god! Yeah, I listened to a podcast for the interviews with the Twitter employees where they had actually, because the employees were still employed at that moment, they didn't know if they would be tomorrow or not. The interview was completely transcribed and then read by a speech to text, text to speech, so that no one could recognize their voice. It's a disaster in there right now, but brutal.
Well, love it while you can. Okay, well, good. So all roads lead to PhotoJoseph, basically. If they just Google you, they can find you. Excellent.
PhotoJoseph it is.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's a good name. I like that name. That is I don't know. That was just a stroke of brilliance you had.
It was a stroke of brilliance. For anybody who wants to know why Frederick thinks this is so funny, they have to go watch his video from, I guess, a week ago, where you announced the new
this mug acquisition. Yes,
yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to watch that, and it all will be revealed. All right, PhotoJoseph, we'll leave it right there, man. Thank you for coming on. We'll have to do this again and dive. There's like a million different topics that we could talk about. I'm looking at your website right now, and there's any one of these videos that you have posted up there we could just talk about all day. So I will make a list. I will make a list and reach out, and we'll continue it. On with your day. Go do your stuff. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you, man. This has been great.
Thank you. Good seeing you, bud. Take care.
All right. Take care, Joe.
This is TWiP.